Hello and welcome to the 2024 version of the PDGA sanctioned recap for the Great Disc State here in Michigan. I'm Brian Papa Wolf Frawley. You may see me around in this great store, Great Lakes Disc. Thanks for them allowing me to do this. Last year I attempted to do a recap of every PDGA event in the Great Disc State, and let me tell you, I failed. There's a lot of them, and I wasn't that great at it, and I got overwhelmed. And by the middle of summer, it was just too much to take care of. So I'm going to try to revamp, do a little bit different this year, bring in a few people to help me talk along the way, and talk about our great disc state. Thank you to those TDs and volunteers that have already run events in 2024. It's great to see them on the schedule. We know we have a lot coming up, including a lot of ice bowls, which may not be sanctioned, a lot of fundraiser events for various groups, and then the beginning of our featured event series here in Michigan. But first, we have a guest. So today, or this evening, or whenever you're watching or listening, please join me in welcoming Mark Stevens, the PDGA State Coordinator for the Great Disc State. All right, in true fashion, Mark Stevens has joined us, and I've remembered to hit the record button. Welcome back to the Great Lakes Disc YouTube channel. Mark Stevens, thanks for being here today. How you doing?
Hey, great to join you, Brian Frawley, on the day before the first big snowstorm of 2024 here in Michigan.
I mean, it's classic. We're talking disc golf and snowblowers at the same time, so get excited. So for those of you that don't know, Mark is the state coordinator for the Great Disc State. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your origin story to disc golf, if you will, and how you got to be the coordinator?
Sure. So actually, it's kind of a two-pronged answer because how I found out about the sport is totally different how I got involved with the sport. So how I
Awesome.
found out about the sport would have been probably the March of 2003. I was fly fishing in Riverbends Park, and there's a big steelhead run that comes up there every spring, and I was fishing for steelhead, and the river goes right through the middle of the park, and of course some of the holes go right along the river, and some kids had thrown their discs in the water and like, hey, can you get these out? Because I'm in waders in the river already. I said, sure. And so I was seeing them throwing it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat because I've always been involved in sports and I really like throwing things. So maybe a week later, I mentioned it to my friend, like, but how do these people, were throwing discs out in the middle of wintertime? And we went out and bought 3 disc starter packs and Innova, and we went out and played a few rounds. And I was like, oh, that's fun. A year goes by or so, and all of a sudden, they're opening up the first disc golf course in Genesee County at Goldenrod in Davison, Michigan. And I went and played the big grand opening they had because they had hot dogs and everything, and played there. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And so on social media, MySpace, that is, I
Ooh.
it was Paul Grasso had posted something online about them playing once a week for a random draw doubles, and so I went out, and it's probably me and Paul and maybe 6 other people, and we just started playing doubles out there every week, and that's how I actually got involved in the sport, was via MySpace.
Yeah, shout
Thanks,
out
Tom.
Flint. Yeah, shout out Flintown Flyers and Paul Grasso and Goldenrod. Goldenrod was my first tournament I ever played, and you were the TD back in 2009.
Yep. So yeah, Paul and I, we were playing doubles out there for a while, and we eventually decided to form a club out there, basically for our doubles that we were running. So that was the genesis of the Flint Town Flyers out there at Goldenrod.
And then so you had Flintown Flyers. That's where we met. I was lucky enough to be on their board with you for a while. Then you transitioned away and kind of pushed onto your side hustle, Black Ace Disc, right?
Correct. Yep. So I was the president of the Flint Town Flyers for 7 years, and at a certain point, I just kind of wanted to kind of go off and do my own thing, and so I formed Black Ace Disc Golf. But we've always been a very tightly in tune with Flint Town Flyers. We always schedule our tournaments around each other, and we always support each other's events. So it's always been a great relationship this whole time. But yeah, I formed Black Ace Disc Golf it was more for the reasons of I just kind of wanted to have complete 100% control of what I was doing and not feel like I had to run the tournaments in a certain manner that the members may or may not wanted. Because maybe I want to run a tournament where people show up in really short shorts in the middle of like wintertime to play a round of disc golf. Maybe I'd want to
Is
do
that
that. Maybe
yeah
some
the
people would
Richard
want to play like that.
yeah
Yeah.
the Richard Engelman Invitational?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah, so that's a great transition. I also started a side hustle about that same time. So that was fun to always be talking with you about that. Your shirt match is one of those side hustles, so that's great. And then eventually you got involved in the MDGO, or the Michigan Disc Golf Organization, and you got a little bit more involved. Tell us about how that came about.
correct. So the I think it's probably been the first full year the Flint Town Flyers was actually going to run some tournaments. I was going to run my tournament out there at Goldenrod, and there was another member of the MDGO who was also going to run a tournament out there at Goldenrod, either like the week before or a week after. And he got in touch with me, and he's like, "Hey, we kind of have a schedule already all set up. Lots of people in the state all have a schedule set up. We kind of all get together and work together, try to run events in the best way possible." And so I kind of got involved, as a minor player there. So I started going to meetings, which were at Todd White's house every fall time, because at that time there was maybe 10 to 15 people coming to the MDGO meetings at those times. So I just got involved. The longer I stuck around, the more I was getting involved. Flint Town Flyers Club was growing bigger and bigger and having more and more events. So eventually we got to host a feature event. And that just kind of helps bring you more into the fold of the people who run the bigger tournaments in, the state. And I was always happy to come help out at events as people would need. And my involvement just continued to grow until it kind of took over.
Yeah, and now you are in your 10th year, I believe, as the state coordinator. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is my final year as the PDGA state coordinator of Michigan. Um, it's been a long time, but it's something it's been fun to do. Basically, with the main thing the state coordinator does is scheduling. So we help schedule all the B tier and C tier events in the state. And the PGA has a set of guidelines, and is basically as long as you're meeting the set of guidelines, the state coordinators don't really have a whole lot of control of who's running tournaments or where they're running them or in which manner, but it's more just trying to make sure everyone's following the distance guidelines, and the clubs themselves are not fighting with each other. And so I'm just trying there to help massage out the schedule. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. Every once in a while, I would do some things like community wants to put on the disc golf course, so local club would ask for a letter here or there. Or also, basically anytime a major is taking place in Michigan, which has been very often over these last 10 years, I usually been asked to write a letter recommendation that goes into those bids. But that is about the main job of what the state coordinator does, is the scheduling. So in Michigan, it's actually a very big job because we have so many tournaments. We're
For those
eclipsing.
that don't know, yeah, how many do we have this year, do you think? Or
I'm
last year?
thinking we're always number 3 in the country behind California, Texas for number of events that are run. We're always close to 300 for sanctioned events, and we may go over that. We may have gone over that last year. I haven't actually sat down and run the stats on my schedule that I have. But yeah, we have a very large number of events. California and Texas actually both have 2 state coordinators.
Wow.
Michigan does not. They've asked me
Do
in
you
the past
think
if I would want to do that, and I told them I thought it was best for the state at this time for me to do it. But I said maybe the next state coordinator may feel differently. But yeah, I've been able to take care of Michigan all by itself.
Yeah, and for that being the third most events in the United States from the PDGA standpoint, that's a pretty impressive role. So you've been doing it for 10 years. You've been running events for a little more than that. What do you think the biggest change as far as like the tournament scene has been in your time?
Well, it's 2 things. First is the player base. The player base is just so much larger, and there are just so many events in Michigan every weekend. I'll say this technology. Way back in the day, there was no social media to post your events on, really, where people could go in and register and sign up on. It was everyone had to show up the morning of with cash in hand and stand in line to register. So now, everyone registers months in advance of the tournaments, and they just show up the day of and basically talk to the people and check in and walk away, as opposed to the long process and the long lines you stand in hoping to get into the tournaments. The big tournaments still would sell out way back in the day. So that, I'd say, was the biggest system, the number of players and the ease of registering for tournaments.
Yeah, that I mean, for I've been around a minute too, but the technology advancement has just really helped our game from our side of the table, from the TD side of the table, big time. Technology has helped us out, so we're thankful for that. Keep it up, PDGA, and everyone doing the work out there, making our lives a little bit easier. So, speaking of the PDGA, do you do anything else with them?
Yes. So for, I believe, the last 5 years, I've been on the PDGA disciplinary committee. For the last 2 years, I was actually the chair of that committee, but I've transitioned away from being the chair of the committee, and I'm now just back to being a regular member. I requested that due to how much time and effort running the state championships took last year. It was very, very difficult at times for the amount of prep work I had to do with that to be able to keep up and doing the major lifting for all the cases that I was doing on the discipline committee. But the PDGA has a few minor committees and then a few major ones. The major ones are being like discipline and rules. So everyone who has any problems or issues at a tournament usually would send in their complaint, and the committee would then review that. If we thought it was a worthy case, we would review it in whole, which would involve talking to witnesses, getting statements from the people who are actually directly involved, and maybe sometimes any other evidence that they might have. And then we sit down as a group and go by the guidelines for punishment if that was warranted.
Yeah. I imagine with the growth of our sport over the last 4 or 5 years, the amount of things that have come across the disciplinary desk have increased, obviously, as well. So,
Oh, tremendously. That was, so when I first started on this, we were maybe reviewing 20, 25 cases a year. I think we reviewed upwards over 50 to 55, I believe, last year of cases. So, well, yeah, more players, more tournaments, more problems sometimes.
yep, more money, more problems, but that's all right. We'll push through. And you mentioned you alluded to the amount of work our state championships were last year and this year as well. We have always been a little bit of braggadocious about having the largest B tier in the world, but we can't say that anymore because our AM state championships turned into an A tier thanks to you and your team that put that on. Tell us more about that. When are we going to know more information about those eagerly seeking Labor Day weekend in Ludington?
Sure, I do have some information I'm willing to provide at this moment. But yeah, we were always the world's biggest B tier, and that was one of our big things we always said. And one of the reasons why we always stayed at B tier over time is because at that time you didn't have to be a member to play a B tier, and so there was always a slight caution about moving to a tier that you had to be actually a full time member of the PDGA to join to play in. But as that became a B tier, that kind of concern somewhat dropped away because most people who are playing the B tiers already are already members. So we decided going to an A tier was going to be best for the players, and I thought was best for the future of the event. It helps us scheduling wise to not get potentially pushed on. So we have some information. Registration for the Discraft Michigan Amateur State Championships will be opening Memorial Day Monday. I don't have a time yet, but it'll be sometime Memorial Day.
Hopefully, it's
That is
after
also at
about
the time that we
5.
will have. I will definitely wait till after your tournament.
Yeah.
And where is your tournament at?
I'll have a Memorial Day Monday tournament. That would be at Winston Preserve outside of Holland. That's a featured event, a silver featured event in the Great Disk State. There'll be like 20 plus berths available. I don't know if that number is right, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, so at that usually I don't like opening tournaments where I don't have everything disclosed. So before we get to that tournament registration date, I will have announced what the player package will be in full, as well as what the course layout is. We are looking at replacing Leviathan with a different course for 2024. So we haven't actually decided which course that is going to be. We have a few different options. Some private course owners have approached us. No,
Hmm.
it's not Flip City. About hosting the tournament on their course. So we're looking at those options, and then we'll come back and make a decision. Hopefully, I'll have the courses all laid out maybe in a month or so, and then we're putting together the player package in conjunction with Discraft, our very long time and great sponsor of the event, and the MDGO. So all those details for everybody, and that also helps get some of the bursts out and circulation waiting. That's when I opened it up last year. It seemed to work well. So
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, thanks to the MDGO and Discraft for helping us put on that great event. And then the MDGO and Discraft have some fun coming out next month, too. So your local club or your local company in Michigan will have some special LEs, right, from the MDGO?
yeah, so Discraft in their sponsorship to the MDGO always offers up some limited edition discs, which the MDGO then turns around and offers to all the clubs and leagues in Michigan as a good way to have a nice little fundraiser going for them in the early spring. So they've given us 4 molds this year. There is a Z Light Raptor, which is joining that big light Z Light driver line that Discraft has been putting out. You
Hmm.
also have an Soft Swirl Zone. We always like to have a zone of some sort every year. We also did the Crystal Shimmer Buzz SS because the Buzz SS, as everybody knows, is the best mold that Discraft creates. And as well as the last one was a fly dyed cicada. So all the clubs and leagues in Michigan who participated with us, everyone's getting some with all their birth packages. So everyone should have limited numbers of all these discs.
Yeah, and support your local club, your local league. And if you don't have a local club or league, or maybe you're listening to this outside of the Great Disk State, you can visit the website that's running this fair show right now. You can grab yours. We'll have them for reserve here soon. But Mark, more importantly, you have a cool thing happening before those things come out. At the end of this month, you're hosting your TD Summit, which I've attended and spoken at before. Thank you for that honor. Why don't you tell everybody what's going on at the end of the month?
Yeah, so one of the things I have started doing was running this tournament director slash league manager summit. The first few years I did it every year, which I thought was maybe a little hard to get people to put together topics that don't get repetitive. So I've been going just every 2 years now. So yeah, in 2-ish weeks, I think it could be 3. Is going to be the tournament director slash league manager summit. It's going to be over in the Oxford area at Seymour Lake. We're going to be playing a round of disc golf at the course first, and then we'll be having the meeting afterwards. It is open to everybody. Here are other topics that I plan on discussing. The first one is all the 2024 rule changes and the competition manual changes. I usually go over those at the MDGO meeting in a little bit lighter manner. I plan on going over almost all of them in my discussion there. We are also having someone from the Michigan Women's Series who's going to come and talk about running women's leagues or events. We also will have myself talking about trademarking slash copyright, because I know that comes up every once in a while with people, and I have actually gone through that process. So I was going to talk about that a little bit. And then we were also going to talk about events, our longtime fundraising outfit here in Michigan, Disc Golf for a Cause. They will be coming and speaking once again about how to run a successful fundraising event.
That's awesome.
Once
Those
again,
are
it's open to
some,
everybody at no cost.
and that is 1/27, I believe, right?
Oh, that is correct. That is the date. Yes.
Excellent. And we will link the Facebook event in the description below once we get this posted on YouTube. And if I get this audio out on some other platform, then just go to Facebook and type in, TD Summit /League Administrator, blah, blah, blah. And Mark will have it there for you. Appreciate you. Mark, what else do we need to know about you, from you? You've got 5-ish minutes. Tell us everything we need to know about being a TD, or everything you want to know about board games behind you. What else you got for us?
All right, well, first I'll go about a TD. Sometimes people say, hey, what do I do about being a tournament director? My advice is always go play a whole bunch of tournaments by a whole bunch of different tournament directors. Take a little notepad with you after the event, sit down and write, these are things I liked that he did. These are things I didn't like what he did. Then take all these lists and put them together. And that is really how you probably should think about running your event. And even then, maybe you don't want to jump in right away by yourself. Maybe like one of these tournament people you played maybe 2 or 3 of their tournaments in. You're like, hey, can I come help at your tournament? Most likely any TD is going to say, yes, you can come help me in some fashion. They're not going to say no. I just about guarantee it. So that is the best way for people who want to be tournament directors. Go get a whole bunch of experience of stuff you like and don't like, because I think that's important. Then behind me is I'm really big into board gaming. I probably have more board games than, it's close. More board games than discs that I own that are mine. Actually, there's a really big board gaming community in disc golfers. There's a thing online. It's called Board Game Arena. And I actually made a group. It's called the Great Disc State. And I have a bunch of disc golfers in Michigan who are all a part of it. It's a fun thing. I've actually always wanted to maybe do something at the state championships one of the nights with board gaming, but I'm always way too busy. But I thought it'd be fun. And by the way, state championships this year.
Yeah, maybe when you're not the TD in a few years, you can come and be the Grand Maestro of gaming.
Yeah, so I don't know what we're going to do. It might not be anything, but it's my 50th birthday on Saturday of States. So.
Ooh. Well, I will definitely play some Catan with you or something. I don't know, whatever. But before we let you go, I have to show one of my most prized possessions in my collection is the Mark Stevens full color staff buzz from AmNats 2017. It's in my collector's box right next to 10-year buzzes. That's how important that disc is. So shout out to you for getting that and putting it in your payout bin one day.
I like to do that. I like to put $100 on it because it's people always get a funny laugh out of it.
Yeah, it's hilarious and it's fun and it's cool. I appreciate your time. We appreciate everything that you've done for this state. For those of you that are watching and listening, let's do a giveaway. I have to reach around and try to find some sort of giveaway. Let's do this hat. Whoop. You can have your choice. You know what? Let's just give them both away. We'll have this blue hat and this Ireland's pattern hat, and in honor of Mark's favorite team in the world winning the national championship, and not Notre Dame winning it ever. Let's say your favorite Michigan player from any sport. It could be your favorite Michigan disc golfer. I don't even know, or your favorite U of M football player. Whatever. Comment below. And I'll randomly have Mark pick some winners here in a few weeks. Mark, thank you again so much for your time, and have a great rest of your season.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'd like to see everyone out on the disc golf courses for too long out here in the Great Disc State, and play well, have fun. Thanks.
Remember to like and subscribe. Deuces.